intro proper for Sonic Boom 6 and Backtracking, and we'll start with the band's debut album, The Rough Guide to Genre Terrorism. Released in 2006 for Deck Cheese Records in the UK and Asbestos Records in the US, it would be produced by Ace and Tim G, whoever they are, and it also has a guest spot from one Coley Ranks on the song All In. For those who watched my brief history bit, I did briefly mention that the band have a ska edge to their sound, but if you're expecting Sonic Boom 6 to sound anything like the Interrupters, then you're dead wrong, mates. From the opening track to today, it's got that ska punk bop, but there's a lot of hip hop and alternative rock influences in there too. It's also a delightfully experimental sound from the opening bell, and it doesn't lose any of its pacing through it, and considering it's 50 minutes runtime, that's a lot to carry through. I like it when that type of energy is captured in a debut like this, because it shows that the band are above what others did at the time, if there were any bands that could do it quite as good, that is. It's just such a fun piece of rock, and God, the production is great. I don't know if I'm listening to the original one or the re-release in 2009 via Rebel Alliance, but either way it sounds so smooth. The album also doesn't act like it's hiding anything, and the band's performances are top notch, but my MVP may go to Layla Khan herself. She effortlessly switches between reggae-inspired rapping and catchy punk singing, all maintained with a great attitude that in most of the cases would probably make me want to punch the vocalist in the face. All in all, the album is put together well. The instrumentals are boppy and fun as hell, the lyrics talking about conformity, corruption and unity all ring out soothingly, and everyone sounds great. This is just a fantastic debut, and my favourite song goes to Bigger Than Punk Rock. I mean, fuck dude, what can I say about this album that I didn't say earlier? I mean, it just kicks a lot of ass, there's no need for hyperbole or metaphors, just fucking listen to this one, it's not hard to find. We then reach the band's second album, Arcade Perfect. Released in 2010 via their own Rebel Alliance label, it would be produced by Peter Miles. So after their debut album was a success and a half, the band got busy with touring, most notably replacing Paramore as a last-minute thing for Reading and Leeds festivals in 2006. They would follow that up with their own first tour titled the Rough and Ready Tour, and they'd go on to play Slam Dunk at various other shows until the release of Arcade Perfect. And from the starting title track, the band again don't hold back. It's their typical ska punk flavoured sound, but with more emphasis on both the ska and the punk this time around. It's got the edge of punk rock, but it's also more experimental, with more uses of saxophones and also some really good guitar solos, which wasn't on their debut. I mean, guitar solos in general, not good ones. You know what I mean. Another thing that adds to this statement is the performances, mostly bassist Paul Barnes having more vocal roles. While he was prominent on their debut, he gets a chance to really shine through some good rapping and such here, and he and Layla just bounce off of each other really beautifully. The lyrics deal with more of what the band did last time around, including things like bullying, environmentalism, identity and distrust, all with their usual flair for fun, which is weird because a lot of those subjects are quite dark. Something that I didn't bring up while talking about Rough Guide is that album had clips of speeches from movies and such, and it's not used as much here, but it's a theme that I'm glad that they carried on, along with the sound that they captured on that album too. This album flows a bit easier too, and as far as living up to a cracking debut, I'd say that Arcade Perfect does that and then some, and my favourite song goes to Tell Me Something That I Don't Know. Arcade Perfect is an album that, like the band's debut, I can't compliment enough, and like their debut, it's performed, written and produced smoothly, and you should also listen to it like you should listen to their debut. It's really good, as is this album. Next is the band's third album, City of Thieves. Released in 2009, it would again come out through Rebel Alliance, and it would again be produced by Peter Miles, and we would get a slight lineup change as Ben Childs would leave to be replaced by Matthew Reynolds on guitar for this one, but I'll touch more on that situation in a little bit. So after Arcade Perfect, the band's star power continued to skyrocket, going on a second Rough and Ready tour, being part of the 2008 Rude Awakening tour, and releasing an Arcade Perfect Rarities album titled Play On, Rare Rejected and Arcade Perfected, which is just such a good rhyme. How about I go back to that lineup change that I sort of glossed over earlier. See, Matt Reynolds was only a temporary member of the band, and for a time bassist/guitarist Nick Horn had been touring with the band for a while, so he was presumably made a permanent member either during or after this album's release. Speaking of this album, we start off with not title track, Welcome to the City of Thieves, and it's a bit different. It's clear from the start that they wanted to try and make this a concept album about life in a large UK city, which is something that bands of this style don't genuinely try. I mean, sure, other examples of the genre are really good storytellers, and Sonic Boom 6 is no exception, but you don't see it a lot, so it's actually nice to see it a bit more here, and the lyrics are about oppression and revolution do lend themselves to that concept. It's also a surprisingly heavier and faster paced album, with more guitar solos and the drum work just being absolutely mental in the best way possible, and it's still got the band's signature flair and style, and the production continued to impress, as do the new things like more backing and gang vocal work, and Layla's own vocals sound super unique on this album. It's once again just really put together well. It's some of the heaviest work that they've done. It has their stamp and sense of style all over it, and it's just really good stuff, and my favourite song goes to The Concrete We're Trapped Within, in brackets, it's yours. City of Thieves once again shows the band stealing my heart, with top production, flawless performances, and amazing experimentation. I think I might secretly be in love with all of them. With all of these people. They're amazing. Moving on now to Sonic Boom 6's fourth album, Sonic Boom 6. Some gags will never go away. It would be released in 2012, this time via Extra Mile Records, and Peter Miles would stay on to produce, and before you ask, no, I don't know if he actually owns Extra Mile Records. Anyway, the album would also contain my first song by the band in Virus. I couldn't find a lot of background info for this one, except for the band playing the 2012 2000 Trees Festival, and I can only presume that there was other touring involved, not to mention a label change and Nick Horn being integrated as to being a proper member of the band as well. So the album starts with For the Kids of the Multiculture, and this song, along with Virus, points to a less ska-influenced sound for the band, instead having more electronic elements, which, you know what, it works actually, yeah. The band sound is just that versatile that the electronic stuff fits in. Even the production containing occasional sample beats and auto-tune still manages to title up without anything sounding too mangled or budgets. And also, in terms of pace, it's still heavy with even occasional screams, but it's also a more positive sounding album, bizarrely. Some of the lyrics, other than talking about darker stuff like politics, culture and celebrity status, do go over things like self-trust and conformity and finding your own place in the world. It's a more rock-leaning album, with more stylised and riffs leading most of the songs, and some of the ska stuff is still there, but it's nice to see this band get out of their comfort zone, as non-existent as that was in the first place. The instruments still sound good, the band still perform well. I just wish they had more to say about this album other than it's maybe their shortest, but it's still good for what you get out of it, and my favourite song goes to Keep On Believing. Sonic Boom 6's fourth piece of music is again just enjoyable, fun, oddly ambitious, and it all just sounds also so good. So good. And finally, for this particular episode, we reached the band's fifth album, The F-Bomb. Released in 2016, this one would come out through Cherry Red Records, and I couldn't find a producer for this one, so let's just say that it was either the band or Peter Miles again. It would also be the band's first album with current drummer Luke Hesketh, and that does lead nicely into what I'm about to say. So, as it turns out, Neil McMinn, the original drummer, his departure would lead to this album being delayed, but under the name of Operation Boombox instead of the F-Bomb, and I can only assume that the title change came with the band making enough money on their Pledge Music page. The album starts with No Man, No Right, and it sets the tone lyrically from the bat, as the F in this album's title stands for feminism more than anything. But as opposed to Thick's recent debut album 5 years behind, this is feminism done correctly and also handled with a sense of fun and Sonic Boom 6 knowing what they're actually talking about, which helps as well. What may not help is that this album has 10 main songs and 15 more added on as part of a live show at Norwich Isles Sanctuary. I guess that it was as close to any promotion for the album as I could find, but if you're going to seek out this album, just stick to the first 10 songs, which themselves are still pretty good. A lot of it follows the more positive lilt that their previous album had, as well as bits of their debut, with more reggae and ska influences that were sort of missing from their self-titled album. But it's also more positive lyrically, focusing on self-love, environmentalism, still some political leaning that's more subtle, which in 2016 is a very underappreciated art. Pacing is more ska/reggae than punk leaning, but it's still the band's attitude and lyrics mixing their typical satire with a new sense of maturity and restraint, which I always like, and my favourite song goes to Love. With a much lighter-hearted tone, still maintaining its good production and sense of enjoyment, the F-Bomb is just another solid bit of work from the band, honestly. I'm really looking forward to whatever the next album will be like. If they do release one this year, I hope they do. And that does it for this episode. Did you feel the boom, or did it sound more like a whisper to you? And will I find better simile/metaphor/analogies by the next episode? Probably not, but who knows. I'll see you next time to cover Glasgow, Scotland's own Honeyblood, and before I sign off, I want to say thank you to everyone who tuned in to watching Reverence last night. It was an amazing pay-per-view. God, that tag match between the Order and the Morgan Brothers was amazing. It was all just really good shit, and obviously, you know, normal programming will resume Tuesday, Friday pay-per-view, and so on and so forth. Next is Locked and Loaded, then War of Attrition after that. Oh god, I'm so excited. But yeah, hopefully the next Backtracking episode won't take as long, because it's only like 3 albums, so, you know, who knows. I'll see you for whatever's next. As always, thank you for watching, you're awesome. Bye-bye.